Welcome to this episode of Council Bluffs Today, presented by Waldstein Plumbing. I'm going to do something today that I say that I never do, and that's we're going to talk about something political. I avoid this like the plague, but there is something that I think that we need to discuss, but probably not for the reason that you might be thinking. We're going to talk about the recent Council Bluffs City Council vote involving the pit bull ban. This is not an episode about whether the vote should have gone one way or the other. That's not what I'm doing here. There are people in Council Bluffs who believe the ban should stay in place. A lot of people who believe it should be repealed. Those are the ones I'm seeing mostly on social media. Those positions can be argued on their own. People have been arguing them. They showed up at the council meeting. They spoke, they listened, the council voted, and that is where local government becomes real. And a vote takes an issue out of theory, puts it into public record. Once that happens, some people are going to feel heard, others are going to feel ignored. It's not unusual. That's very common. Happens in every city where decisions are made in public. The question that we're going to talk about today is what happens next. A person can be disappointed about a vote. You can think an elected official got it wrong. You can remember that vote when the next election comes around. None of that is out of bounds. That actually is the way it should work. Lines get crossed when disappointment turns into personal retaliation. And I've seen people calling for boycotts of businesses connected to elected officials. I've seen people asking for home addresses. This is not where local disagreement should go. A city has to be able to handle people disagreeing with each other. If every difficult vote turns into an attempt to punish someone personally, public service becomes something only the most hardened people are even going to consider, and that's not good for Council Bluffs. It's not good for any side of any issue. So what I'm talking about today is bigger than one vote. The pit bull ban is the issue that's in front of us right now, but the same question is going to come back again with another topic. Might be public safety, might be development, might be money, might be something that the council hasn't even seen on their agenda yet. The standard should not change based on whether we like the outcome. There's a proper way to respond when a local vote doesn't go your way. Speak at another meeting. Contact your elected officials through public channels. Support a candidate in the next election. Maybe decide to run for office yourself. I saw one person saying that he was planning on running for city council, and I believe it was because of this issue. That's a fair response. If anyone agrees with him, that's a separate question. But the important part is he pointed his frustration toward the public process instead of toward somebody's private life. That is how civic disagreement is supposed to move. Local government gives people a path. It's not always fast. It's not always going to give you the answer that you want, but the path does exist. Those meetings are open. Elections happen. Public comment is available. Candidates can be challenged, all legitimate tools. Harassment is not a legitimate tool. So when someone starts asking where an elected official lives, and yes, I saw that, the message changes and it no longer feels like a policy argument. It starts to feel like intimidation. There's no reason to take a city issue to someone's doorstep. Public officials have public roles. Those roles deserve scrutiny, yes. Votes should be discussed. Reasoning can be questioned. Public statements are fair to examine. Their families are not the issue. Their homes are not the meeting room. There's also a line between choosing where to spend your money and trying to create a public punishment campaign against a private business. A person can make a personal buying decision. Always true, and I will always support that. But when the goal is about damaging someone's livelihood because of a council vote, the community should stop and think about what kind of standard that is creating. That standard doesn't only apply to one person. Once people accept personal retaliation as normal, it becomes available to anyone who feels angry enough to use it. That should be bothering people on every side. Council Bluffs has business owners who care about this community. Some of them serving on boards. Some run for public office. Some volunteer in other ways because they want the city to be better. That is something a community should want. A person who owns a business does not lose the right to serve. They also do not become immune from criticism. If they hold public office, their public decisions can be challenged like anyone else's. The distinction matters. Criticizing a vote is one thing. Trying to hurt a business because of the vote, that's something else. Those two things should not be treated as though they are the same. The first is civic participation. The second, you're talking about personal punishment. And a city needs people with different backgrounds to serve. It needs people who understand neighborhoods, budgets, services, everyday pressures of making decisions that affect others. Business owners can bring one kind of experience, and so can teachers, workers, parents, people who have spent years paying attention to local issues. If public service is too toxic, fewer reasonable people are going to want to have anything to do with it, and that is going to make all of us worse off. Council Bluffs Today brought to you by GLI Insurance Group. Summer in Southwest Iowa means road trips, backyard projects, storms, lake weekends, and a whole lot more time on the go. Before the season gets too busy, make sure your insurance is ready for it. GLI Insurance Group can help you review your home, auto, business, farm, and life insurance so you know what is covered before you need it. Local people, local service, and coverage built around your life. Contact GLI Insurance Group today and head into summer with a little more peace of mind. Good morning. Start with peace of mind. My Nurse Healthcare provides professional in-home support where it matters most, helping individuals maintain comfort, dignity, and independence in their daily lives. Their experienced nursing team focuses on personalized care, clear communication, and supporting families through every step of the process. It is healthcare built on trust, compassion, and real relationships. Learn more at mynursehealthcare.com. It's easy to say people should have thicker skin, and there is some truth to that. If you hold public office, you need to expect disagreement and criticism and uncomfortable questions. But there's a difference between thick skin and accepting abuse as the price of serving. No city should want a political culture where asking for someone's home address is treated like normal activism. And no city should shrug when a policy disagreement turns into a push to damage someone's private livelihood. The vote was public, so keep the disagreement public. Talk about the vote. Talk about the argument. Talk about whether you think the council should have considered, and talk about what you want to see happen in the future. That gives the community something to work with. One reason this matters so much is that local issues are just personal by nature. And in national politics, people argue about names that they never meet. Local government, like right here in Council Bluffs, that's different. The people that are making the decisions, they live nearby. You're probably going to see them around town. Your work, family, church, business. It's familiar to people in the community. And that closeness can be healthy. And it can make elected officials more accessible and can remind people that public decisions are not being made in some distant place. It can help residents feel like they have a real chance to be heard. That same closeness, it also makes anger more dangerous. When people know too much about someone's private life, they're tempted to use that information as a weapon. A disagreement that should stay in the council chamber can move into a workplace or a home or a family conversation that never should have been a part of it. Doesn't make the argument stronger. It only makes the community meaner. And social media, it can speed that up. And look, I get it. I make my living on social media. But sometimes things go awry. A person sees a vote they don't like, they react quickly, post something that gets attention. It's harsher than what someone else said, and the next comment goes even further, and before long, the issue itself, it's all buried under personal attacks. And the real conversation, it's just harder to have. If you have a serious concern about any city ordinance, that concern deserves a better setting than a pile-on. It deserves facts and public questions and a real attempt to persuade people who may not already agree. Yeah, anger gets attention. Persuasion requires a little bit more discipline. So if you want to change minds, you got to think past the moment. The question is not only what feels good to say right now, it's whether the response helps move the community toward a better decision the next time around. So that applies no matter what side lost the vote, and it applies no matter what the vote is or what the topic is. The other danger is that bad behavior, it makes a serious argument easier to dismiss. Someone may have a well-reasoned position and they may have facts and personal experience and a sincere concern, but if the public face of that position is harassment, the argument loses ground. And people who might have listened, they're just going to turn away. And that's not fair in every case, but it is real. A good cause can be hurt by the way people carry it. A valid concern can be weakened when supporters start acting as though the rules of basic decency don't apply to them. That's why restraint matters. Restraint's not silence. It's not surrender. It doesn't mean pretending everything's fine when you believe a decision was wrong. Restraint means keeping the response aimed at the public issue. If the problem is a vote, address the vote. If the concern is an ordinance, address the ordinance. If an elected official gave an explanation that you feel doesn't hold up, then challenge that explanation. That's enough to work with. There's no need to involve a home address, and there's no need to pull family into the discussion, and there's no need to take a city decision and turn it into a campaign against someone's private life. That kind of response does not prove commitment. It proves the line has been lost. The person watching this, you might have strong feelings about the pit bull ban. You might think the council made the right decision. You might think they made the wrong decision. I'm not asking you to change your view on how that vote on that ordinance went. I'm asking something different. Can Council Bluffs disagree without trying to destroy people? That should be a basic expectation. A city where people can argue hard and still stay within decent boundaries. That's stronger than a city where every vote becomes personal warfare. There's also a responsibility on the side that wins the vote. People get the outcome they want. It's tempting to treat everyone else as though they're being unreasonable, and that doesn't help either. A public vote may settle what happens next, but it does not erase the concerns of people who disagreed with it. Winning should not become permission to mock people, and losing should not become permission to harass people. Both sides have a responsibility after a vote. That responsibility is especially important here in a city the size of Council Bluffs. People are going to continue living around each other. Meeting's over, and we are still sharing the same space. And we're still on the same streets. We're still shopping in the same places, caring about many of the same local problems. One vote doesn't take all of that away. We have to leave a little room for people to come back to the table, and that's much harder when every disagreement turns into a character judgment. It's a lot harder when people decide that anyone who voted differently must be corrupt and cruel or stupid. Sometimes a person has just weighed the issue differently. You can disagree with that judgment and work to replace that person at the ballot box. You do not have to turn them into a villain to do it. There's many cases where stronger criticism is deserved. Public officials can act badly. It does happen. They can ignore information and they can fail to explain themselves. And when that happens, citizens have every right to speak plainly. But even strong criticism should keep the focus where it belongs. A vote is a public act. A policy argument belongs in public discussion. The remedy for bad representation, if that's what you see it as, it's better civic action. A person running for council is a clean example of that. It says, I don't like this decision, so I'm going to ask the voters for a chance to make decisions differently. That's fair. That's accountable. That keeps the issue inside the system instead of dragging it into private retaliation. As I said, local elections matter more than people sometimes realize. Residents do not pay close attention to city government until a decision hits something that they care about. Then the council suddenly feels very important. And that's understandable, but it also shows why engagement cannot begin only after a single vote. By then, the decision may already have been made. A better response begins earlier. Learn who represents you. Watch how they talk through issues. Pay attention to meetings before your own concern is on the agenda. Local government is a lot easier to influence when people are involved before the room is already filled with frustration. Now, that kind of involvement, I get it, it's slower, but it's also more effective. If you believe a council member is not representing the city well, there's an election coming up, and that's going to give you the real path. So campaign for someone else if you disagree. Ask better questions. Talk with your neighbors about the issue in a way that helps them understand why it matters. That is serious work. It doesn't create the same quick release as an angry post online does, but it can change the result. Local elections are quite often decided by people who show up consistently. A person who cares enough to stay involved can have more influence than they realize. And that is the constructive side of disappointment. The person who said he may run for council is doing something that fits within that tradition. And I know him. He might find out that running's hard and may decide to continue, or he may not. The important part is the instinct to answer a public decision with public participation. That is what should be encouraged. Council Bluffs does not need fewer people caring about local government. It needs more people caring in a way that helps the city function. Care can then become action, and action is going to need some direction. The direction should be toward meetings and elections and public argument and better representation. It should not be toward home addresses and families and private retaliation. Another reason this matters is that online anger gives people a distorted picture of what our community is. A comment thread makes it seem like everyone is furious, and it makes it seem like the loudest voices represent the whole city, and sometimes they do. Oftentimes they don't. Social media is not the same as public consensus. It's a place where people react quickly, and especially when they're upset. And that does not mean every reaction is worthless. Real concerns do show up there. People sometimes use social media because they feel ignored elsewhere. But online reaction needs a little bit of judgment and temperate. Before joining a pile-on, a person should ask whether the post is helping anything. Is it giving useful information? Is it asking a fair question? Is it encouraging people to take part in a legitimate way? Those are all reasonable tests. If the post is trying to intimidate someone, it fails. If the post is trying to expose private information, it fails. And the post, if it's trying to punish a family member or damage a business through anger rather than argument, it fails. That should be true even when the person posting is on your side of the issue. This is where communities either build standards or we lose them. Council Bluffs Today is brought to you by Keith Jones, your Edward Jones financial advisor in Council Bluffs. Learn how he can help you reach your financial goals. Visit edwardjones.com for more. Edward Jones, member SIPC. Looking for a place to relax, recharge, and take better care of yourself? Kinetics Massage and Bodywork has moved into the Omni Center in Council Bluffs. Owner and licensed massage therapist Tina Hebner offers customized massage and bodywork designed around what your body needs, from relaxation massage to focused therapeutic work. And with the move into the Omni Center, Tina is building towards something even bigger, a larger wellness space for the Council Bluffs community. Take time for yourself. Schedule with Kinetics Massage and Bodywork at kineticsbodywork.com. It's easy to condemn bad behavior from people that you already disagree with. The harder test comes from someone who shares your views and is still going too far. That is when a principle becomes real. If asking for home addresses is wrong, then it's wrong regardless of the issue. If family members should be left alone, they should be left alone regardless of whatever vote took place. If private businesses should not become targets for public retaliation, that should not depend on whether you liked the decision. A community standard has to be bigger than one outcome. Otherwise, it's not a standard. It's just a weapon waiting for your turn to use it. Council Bluffs should aim higher than that. None of this means people should be passive. No. A community where nobody challenges elected officials, that's not healthy either. Public officials should know that residents are paying attention and votes should have consequences at the ballot box. Public reasoning should be questioned when it doesn't make sense. It's all part of democracy. The key is keeping the response tied to public responsibility. If you think a council member voted a certain way, then ask why. If you don't think that's a strong enough answer, tell them. If the decision doesn't match what you feel residents want, then organize around that. And if someone believes they could represent the city better, then make your case to voters. All of that belongs. The problem's not pressure. The problem is pressure that turns into intimidation. And there is a difference between making a public official uncomfortable because they have to defend a vote and then making them concerned about their private safety. The first, it's all part of accountability. The second damages the whole civic environment. A city needs enough trust for people to stay involved. That does not mean you have to agree all the time. Trust does not require everyone to see the issue the same way. It means people believe the boundaries will hold even during disagreement. Those boundaries protect everyone. The elected official who made that vote, protect the resident who speaks against City Hall. But once intimidation becomes normal, it can be turned in any direction. That's why this issue matters beyond the people that are involved right now. Because that next controversial vote, it could have different sides, and the people angry today may be the people defending a decision later. A standard built only for the current moment, that's not going to survive very long. Council Bluffs needs a standard that works when emotions are high. So speak up, make the argument, use the process, leave people's private lives out of it. It's not complicated, but it does require people to mean it before the next conflict arrives. So the message today, it's simple. Disagreeing with a local vote? Yes. Being angry about a local vote? Sure. Working to change the outcome? Yes. Do that. Personal retaliation? That's different. Asking for home addresses is not civic participation. Targeting family members? That is not accountability. And trying to damage a private business because of an official vote is not the same as making a public argument. And those lines matter. They matter on this issue, and they're going to matter on the next one. We need to have strong debates here in Council Bluffs without losing basic decency. It can have residents who care deeply without turning every disagreement into a personal attack. And it can have elected officials who are questioned, challenged, even replaced without making public service feel like an invitation to harassment. That is the kind of community worth trying to protect. So if you don't like a decision, the public process gives you somewhere to go. Show up at the meetings, ask the questions, support the candidates that you want to support, vote. Hey, run for office yourself if that's the step that fits. And I would encourage you to do it. Come be on the show. I'll give you an interview. But one person saying he may run for council, that's a good example of taking frustration seriously without taking it personally. I'm not saying that he's right on the issue. I'm not saying he's wrong. That's not the point to this. I'm not saying you have to support him. All I'm saying is that he's using the process in a way that belongs in a local democracy. That is the lane. Council Bluffs is going to keep having disagreements. Some are going to be emotional. Some are going to be messy. Some are going to leave you feeling like the council or the board of supervisors or whoever it might be, you might be feeling like they didn't listen to you, and that response still matters. A community does not become stronger by punishing people at home or trying to hurt their families. It does not become stronger by turning private businesses into targets every time a public vote disappoints someone. It becomes stronger when people stay involved, make better arguments, and take their case to the place where public decisions are supposed to be settled. That place is the public process. So, again, sorry for the political. There's a reason that I don't do these things, but this time I just had to say something because it was just going too far. All right. It's going to do it for this episode of Council Bluffs Today. My name's Todd Studer. Thank you so much for watching. Do me a favor, click like, click share, click follow, and comment here. But please keep it clean because I have a rule about that. You can disagree, but when it turns into personal shots, that's where I draw the line. We'll see you tomorrow morning.